Welcome to Love Them Tender, where we find the love in big-hearted books, movies, and TV. I'm Alexandra Hidalgo, and I'm so glad you're here. I just finished reading Sally Rooney's 2024 novel Intermezzo, and I was completely riveted by it. It's her first novel she's ever written where the protagonists are two men. She usually has us follow women. And I wanted to understand what made her choose this different path. And it turns out that during the pandemic, her husband, John Prasifka, who is a math teacher whom she met during college, really got into online chess. And even though she didn't get into playing the chess, she started watching YouTube videos of explanations of how to play chess, and she fell in love with the elegance and the brilliance that it takes to play this game, and she thought, okay, I want to have a character who does that. The first character that came to her, who is Ivan, who's a 22-year-old chess wonder. He is incredible at it, but because his dad was sick for a long time and just died, he has sort of fallen off in his chess playing. And he is an incredible, thoughtful, gentle soul of a character. And then she thought, this isn't quite working for me, I need something else. And she gave him a brother, Peter, 32, who, like her, used to be a champion debater. The way that Sally Rooney's career began is that she wrote an essay about being the #1 debater in Europe as a young woman. And that essay was so powerful that that's how she got her agent, and the rest is literary history. But she gave him a very different personality. He's a much darker, much more wounded person. And as the book goes on, we realize why. But she split up these two men who had always had a kind of complicated relationship because they're 10 years apart and they're children of divorce, and then develops a story in which they come back together. The fabulous thing about how they come back together, though, is that they do so by embracing the fact that they have fallen very unconventionally in love. So she uses these complicated romantic entanglements that these men fall into to eventually bring them back together. I write about love and I cover big-hearted content on this channel, so love is the thread that weaves through my whole creative and personal life. And it's the same for Sally Rooney. And she mentioned in an article in The Guardian, and I quote, "Falling in love when I was very young with somebody who completely transformed my life," end of quote, is what has allowed her to be a novelist. So at the center of all her work is this relationship that she has with her now chess-playing husband, and you can see how all of those threads from her personal life are woven into this beautiful, beautiful novel. Brothers shape each other in some of the most definitive ways that any relationship can shape us. I have two sons, William and Santiago. They show up on this channel often, giving us our views on the things that we watch together, and they are deeply important to each other. Yes, we the parents matter so much, but they have this whole universe of inside jokes and memories of things that either they went through together or that we also experienced, but that their childhood fixated on something completely different than we did. And that's a relationship that I hope will be forever with them, because they are the keepers of each other's childhood. However, for the protagonists of Intermezzo, Peter, who is 32, and Ivan, who is 22, that bond is very different because being 10 years apart, unlike my kids who were 2 years apart, they didn't get to experience childhood together, really. And on top of that, then their parents got divorced, and while Peter is very outgoing and charming and a little ruthless, he's our champion debater, Ivan is nerdy and sweet and introspective and really, really, really smart, but very, very sensitive. And once their father dies, they're left with this mother who prefers her stepchildren and doesn't play much of a role in their lives. All they really have is each other, but they lost each other long ago. They had each other for a little bit when Ivan was little, but they haven't figured out as adults how to relate to one another. And it's a very painful division for them because they are each other's family. They're all they have. And our culture thus pushes to really think of our brothers as what they should be, which is this relationship that is so vital, but they don't know how to get back whatever little they had, and they certainly don't know how to rebuild something new. And it's a fantastic conflict for the book. And interestingly, the way that Sally Rooney writes it, the only way that they can understand their unconventional relationship as brothers is by having much more unconventional relationships as lovers of women. Once they come to terms with the complicated desires of their heart, when it comes to women, they're able to then make place for their complicated brotherly relationship. The relationship between sex and love is one that we've been pondering probably forever, for as long as we've been pondering anything. Do we need to have sex to be happy with our partners? Is it okay to have sex with people that we don't love? These are all questions, and people land on different answers. And one of the things that we do know is that lately people are having less sex. The newer generations are not as interested in sex, and they're also having fewer long-term commitments of the romantic kind. And it's a question that we wrestle with as a society or as a race, the human race. And in Sally Rooney's Intermezzo, that question is at the heart of one of the relationships that Peter, one of our protagonists, ends up finding himself in. For the last 14 years, he has been in love with Sylvia, who was his debate partner when they were the champion debaters that they were in college. And it was, at least in his recollections of it, an ideal relationship. She is literally a member of their family, perhaps the person that keeps his family together more than anybody else, and she's kind and brilliant. They're both professors. He's also a lawyer, but she is this human that just exudes grace and charisma and all the things that he loves. However, she was in an accident years ago, and she is forever riddled with pain, and she can't have sex anymore. And when that happened, she said, I'm not gonna ruin two lives. My life is ruined, not yours. And she forced him to break up with her, even though he wanted to stay with her. And even though she still loves him. And as a result, what has happened is that as the years go by, they're still in love with each other and they're still in each other's lives, but there's this desire that he has, this desire that she also has that she can't fulfill, and neither one of them has, of course, moved on. She never planned to move on, and he finds himself stuck. And as the book evolves, he's like, let's be together, even if there is no sex, even if the sex is something different. But it's a really smart way to look at that question that I think a lot of us are asking today. What is the role of sex in love? There's a wonderful book called Writing the Romantic Comedy by Billy Murnett. And in it, he says that in a romantic comedy, the woman can never be in the relationship only for the money, and the man can never be in the relationship only for the sex. Those rules cannot be broken in romantic comedies. And one of the questions that Sally Rooney explores in Intermezzo is whether that is even possible. If you're in a sustained relationship with a woman and you're only in it for the sex, can you stay only at sex, or do feelings eventually arise when you're having sex over and over and over with someone? So Peter, one of our protagonists, who again is 32, is in a relationship with a college student, very young, Naomi. And it starts as a sex thing. He is in love with Sylvia, who is his age, but they can't have sex because of her accident. And here's Naomi. She meets those needs for him, and in exchange, he gives her money. It's not a prostitution thing at all. She is a college student. She mostly makes her living sometimes by sending sexy pictures to men who pay for them. And he's a lawyer. He's got money. He gives her money. As the book goes on, though, they realize that Naomi and Peter have both sort of been playing each other. They think that they can just have sex and have this exchange without many emotional strings attached. And of course, eventually the emotions take over, which really puts him in a complicated situation, because not only does he feel like he's cheating on Sylvia because now he has feelings for this other woman, but she's also a college student and he's a grown man. So he finds himself doubly freaked out about this relationship, in which he finds himself falling more and more deeply in love with this younger woman who has also developed feelings for him. And as the story evolves, this conflict keeps getting more and more and more tense, because the more the feelings grow, the more he feels like it's impossible for him to have this relationship. One of the hopes most of us have for our romantic relationships is that they will fulfill our emotional needs and our intellectual needs. That idea of, oh, my partner is my best friend, but also our sexual needs. We, as a culture, and I'm guessing most cultures, are looking for a partner who will fulfill both of those things that most humans need in order to be happy. And yet, we know, because either we've experienced it or we've seen a million movies and TV shows and read a million books about it, infidelity is rampant, right? It happens a lot. So not all marriages are going to be able to fulfill both those things. And in Intermezzo, Sally Rooney has Peter, our protagonist, faced with a situation where at first it feels like he has two women that each fulfill one thing. Sylvia, his long-term partner, is only there for him in an emotional, intellectual way, and Naomi is only there for him in a sexual way. And that feels dirty and complicated to him. He struggles greatly, and he feels like he's hurting them both. And as the book progresses, he realizes that he can actually have some version of sex with Sylvia, and he can also then have an emotional connection with Naomi, but neither one of them is going to be enough. And eventually, finally, the women meet and they both say, we're cool with all three of us being in whatever relationship we can concoct together. that would work for us if it works for you. And he really struggles with this. He struggles because Naomi's a younger woman. He struggles because he doesn't want to make a fool of Sylvia, who is a revered academic that everybody loves. He struggles because he wonders what his friends will say, but they are going to try to make it work. And if the world doesn't like it, it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be as hard as parting from these two women that he loves and who love him and who even like each other. I grew up in Venezuela, and our culture was full of songs about older men being with younger women. One of the famous one was by an artist called Jose, and it was 40 and 20. And it was the story about this 40-year-old who was into this 20-year-old girl. And as you're growing up, it's like a little confusing and weird, but it was part of the culture, and you're like, okay, well, we're dancing to this at parties, so I guess it's okay. What we didn't have any songs about was older women with younger men. Now, that was Venezuela in the 80s. In the US, we certainly have the idea of the cougar and the MILF. And in Intermezzo, Sally Rooney looks at exactly that dynamic. We have our protagonist, Ivan, who's 22, and he still has braces, and he's wounded. His dad just died, and he's not speaking to his brother. He's in a very vulnerable point in his life, and he, chess genius that he is, goes to do a tournament where he plays 10 people at the same time, and he wins against all of them. And the woman who's in charge of the art center where the tournament is happening is 36. Her name is Margaret. She is so beautiful physically, but certainly so beautiful inside. She is kind and understanding and recently divorced, and sparks fly. And these two wounded, vulnerable, kind, introspective people find themselves in bed with each other, and that's one thing. Great, the sex was fun. But then they realize just how much they deeply get each other in ways that nobody else ever has, even though they're 14 years apart. And that was one where I was reading it, I was like, is she gonna do this? Are these two going to end up together? You're rooting for them so much because you see that they are each other's person, but you're also thinking, what is society going to do with this? What will be the cost for both of them? In her case, she lives in a tiny town, fictional, where everybody talks about everybody. And again, she's working with that double standard that we've had, where men with younger women is something that we're more familiar with. And we give it the eye roll and the side eye, but at the end of the day, it happens on a regular basis. But this is a new one, and she's asking us, Sally Rooney is, to sort of give this possibility of the age gap a chance. What if the person that is meant to be your love happens to be 14 years older than you? We women famously have biological clocks, and the way that the standards of beauty are, the older we get, the less appealing we are for a lot of people, even though somehow George Clooney only gets handsomer and people would just want to be with him more, right? We see aging men as being sophisticated, and we tend to look at aging women and be like, oh, well, she's past her prime. And it's something that we're working through as a culture and probably always will be. And of course, for us women, I'm 49, I'm like, this is ridiculous that our values should suddenly be diminished just because we're aging. And in Intermezzo, Sally Rooney explores this in the character of Margaret, who's 36. She's still considered an incredibly beautiful woman, but she's starting to, if she wants kids, hit the age where it's going to be harder to have children. And she did marry, but she married Ricky, who turned out to be an alcoholic. So that's already bad enough. The town is looking down upon her for all of these things, for having left Ricky and now for being divorced. And then she falls in love with 22-year-old Ivan, who isn't even from town. She fell in love with him at work. So is she going to lose her job? Her mom calls her all sorts of names. Her best friend Anna can tell that things are happening, but doesn't quite pull the trigger on judging her. And yet she knows deep inside her that this relationship is good, that this man is good, and that it is something that she's going to have to try. That mental gymnastics that she goes through makes this already kind and compassionate human being into an even more so. So that as the book is coming to the close, and the one relationship that has yet to be mended is between Ivan and his brother Peter, she's the one who's able to orchestrate that reconciliation, because she realizes that these two brothers who have been at odds with each other for years are gonna have to do the kind of mental gymnastics that she has had to do to be with Ivan in order to reconcile. And in her very kind and generous way, she helps both of them, even though she's just met Peter, do that work. And then we have this deeply unconventional family coming together. These two brothers that are very different and 10 years apart are finally reconciling, and they're reconciling as a family of outcasts, because they will all be outcasts. Peter has two women, one of which is much younger. Ivan has one woman who is much older. Society will look down upon them, but hopefully they will have each other. And with that, they will get to keep their unconventional love and also be together as a family, which is the original conflict of the story. The family broke, and now it comes back in a very different iteration. But everybody has learned a lot, and they've become a lot more compassionate and less judgmental as they step into this very complicated new space that they're going to navigate together. Thank you for watching this video. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on Intermezzo or on Sally Rooney's whole oeuvre? What do you think about unconventional love, relationships between people who are older and people who are younger, or relationships where there's more than two people in the relationship, or whether we need to, in a marriage, fulfill both our sexual and emotional needs for each other? She does a lot of thinking and exploring in this novel about some pretty meaty topics, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and how it made you feel about your own life and your own choices when it comes to family and romance. And of course, what do you think about brothers and the role they play for each other? Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It makes all the difference, and I really, really appreciate it. Love Them Tender's reluctant cinematographer is my husband, Nathaniel Buller. Our social media managers are Lana Elsahemi and Anna Radzinski. Thank you so much for joining us, and as always, stay big-hearted.